how does a guy like you, growing up in Queens, end up now? Let's fast forward a few years,
Decades.
decades, become a Rav here, being Marbitz Torah in Eretz Yisrael, to Yidden, Shiurim online, giving Shiurim, become the Rav of Kehila here in Eretz Yisrael. How does that trajectory happen? Because that's not a normal thing that we see. Um, and I think a lot of people who do know you, they might not know this part of you.
Because I grew up in Queens, it's not normal, or
I don't know.
no? I always want to know what the not normal part over here was. The Queens part.
No,
There's plenty of lochs that become rabbis.
the
I'm saying
background, the background.
here. So the background
We don't
really.
need to go into the nitty gritty details of your life, obviously,
You don't
but
want to be. You don't want to know about when I was wearing Bukharlim
no, no.
with the Bukharians.
No,
You know about
I
that.
know about that.
Akitsa, they don't know about that.
It's
Lemaisa, it's really one answer: is that there's nothing tevadik about it. This is nothing natural about this, and I really don't have an explanation. But Teva to explain how I went from there to here. We could just end right now because I don't really have an explanation.
well,
But
no. What I'm saying, you went to normal yeshivas.
not really. I didn't go anything normal. But what I will say is massive siyata d'shmaya. That's for sure. That's no question about it. And I think sometimes I think about the question that you asked, but much more in a very very thankful to Hashem. That's how I think about it because it's not pasha to have a schus to be marbitz Torah like you're saying. So I try to think like what could I have done. So schus avos, that's for sure. My parents are very holy Jews. They should live and be well. My wife is also definitely a huge part of this. What you're seeing right now, not the suit, but definitely a huge, definitely a huge part of where I got to today. There's no question about that. She really pushed me a lot. But certain things I guess that I always kept trucking. That's the truth. I had a tkufa. I think I spoke about this in the past, but at tkufa where I had a ridiculous amount of anxiety, mamash clinical anxiety, I will call it. And Baruch Hashem, we kept trucking. That's the truth. And that was the massive, massive sign. It wasn't like a week. It wasn't 2 weeks. It was for a nice long while. But certain things that I kept up. Mikveh every day. I think is a massive effect on your trajectory. There are plenty of people who go to the mikveh every day, so they could be like, "What about us?" I don't know. Good shaila.
I know plenty of
Yeah,
people.
plenty of people go to the mikveh every day, but I think that was definitely I was Meister Nefesh for the mikveh many times. I walked in the rain very far, etc. Certain things that you do that just make or break it. And above all, I think the learning of halacha is what separates the boys from the men. And
Well, I want to get to that, but I think we'll get to that later in the conversation. But
okay, no problem. So, but
um,
I definitely think that was a massive, you know, directional. I don't even know if that's a word, but it just puts you on a certain. It puts you in a certain direction, and there's a tachlis to it, as opposed to just learning in the air. Now, Torah on every level is mamish the highest, like they say. Torah on every level, Talmud Torah keneged kulam. Ayin da'alon that there might be something greater this week, Pashas Mashalach, but that's a different story. But Talmud Torah keneged kulam, so definitely Torah on any level is something that's incredible and something that's does for your neshama like no other. But there's a lot of just what's the word I'm looking for? I'm using my hands. That's very yeshivish. There's a lot of just like gray area, we'll call it. A lot of gray area. Yeah, we're learning. Even if you're learning a lot and you're learning many hours a day, that's why there's no direction in general. Halacha grounds you specifically. It grounds you and it gives you something that every single day, every single minute as you live as a Jew, this is, you're plugged in. When you're learning Torah with that's just more out there, with not as much direction, it's not as grounding. So that also definitely, I feel personally had a huge impact. But again, like I said, there's nothing natural about it, and I can't take any credit. because there's another million people like me, way better than me. Let's put it out there that are not zeichet to what I'm zeichet to, Baruch Hashem. So it's just the Chesed Hashem, schus of the tzaddikim. I've been going to Uman for many years. That's definitely had a massive impact. I can talk last year's trauma. We'll leave that aside for now. It's a different episode, the trauma episode. But Baruch Hashem, so that's really what I don't have more than that right now.
Well, coming off of that, you came to Eretz Yisrael, which, like most Bachrim, they come to Eretz Yisrael, they come here for Yeshiva, they learn. A lot of them go back, a lot of them try and make it here in Eretz Yisrael. And Baruch Hashem, you've not only been dealing with Bachrim, you're a Rebbe in multitude of yeshivas. You're also a Rav to Kehillah here in Eretz Yisrael, both Americans and Israelis, pretty well-rounded, also Israeli Bachrim. And I think one of the questions that...
I'll forget the Kollel. You're in the Kollel, man.
You're also the Rosh Kollel Givat HaMivtar.
You're in the Kollel, man. Come on. You see how he forgets about the Kollel? It's like he hasn't been there for 7 years,
With a great Rosh Kollel, time it goes fine. But I think one of the main questions that I definitely would have had as a bacher if I would have had you as a Rebbe back then is a bacher who comes to Eretz Yisrael, they have these Rebbeim that they get connected to, and then they go back, and if they don't keep up this kesher, a lot of times they kind of disappear. Their Yiddishkeit disappears. They don't have this anchor that they had when they were in Eretz Yisrael. And we see nowadays a lot of Bachrim are staying in Eretz Yisrael 1 year, Shana Aleph, Shana Bet, Shana Gimel, Shana Dalid. You as a Rebbe here in these yeshivas, what are you seeing now from the Bachrim? What do they want when they're coming to Eretz Yisrael? What do they want from you? Obviously, you give a halacha shir. What do you think it is about halacha that's drawing them in to learning from you, keeping them connected?
So again, my shir is, I like to call it shir al-katar kula, because it really, the baseline is halacha, but it always ends up segueing into many different topics, ashkafic, halachic, in general. The Bachim, I'll be honest, the Bachim that I see these days, they're real mevakshin, which is at least the ones that I'm encountering. They're real mevakshin, which is really nice to see. Because obviously growing up today, it's not so easy. If I always tell the guys, if I grew up in your generation, I probably wouldn't be religious today. Like, let's put it out there. Like, they're dealing with incredible nisyanis that nobody could have fathomed even 10 years ago. But when they come to Eretz Yisrael, they're mamish. They're looking to grow. They're looking to mind shift, I guess we'll call it. And at least the ones that come to my shir, I would say most of them. I don't know, for sure. The vast majority are really looking to grow, and they do grow, and they change. And what happens when they get back to Chutz La'aretz? That's a good question. Obviously it depends on their setting in Chutz La'aretz. But while they're here, I see incredible growth, and it gives me personally a lot of chizuk to see the growth and the want to growth, and the ratzon to grow, and it's really, really inspiring. So I can't take credit for that. But like we discussed a few minutes ago, halacha is grounding and halacha is relevant. People love relevance, especially today when so many things are irrelevant. I know someone who makes YouTube short videos in the bathroom, and you got 60,000 hits. Completely irrelevant, but that's what people. So people are just thirsting for relevance. People are thirsting for something tangible, something real. YouTube short AI videos, I forgot to say. And people are just thirsting for something real, something that they could hold on to. Like, I just saw a study recently that people are starting to smoke cigarettes again.
Yeah,
I think I mentioned this to you, and I think the psychology behind it is
and flip phones.
It's tangible. It's just something real. Everything is so fake today. Everybody's smoking what they're smoking. I don't want to say I'm recording, but you know what they're smoking. And now they have something real they could hold on to. They have a physical cigarette. They light it. Just gives them something to feel grounded, because everything around them is so fake and superficial. So you definitely see that. It's mamish the servalani, I guess, on the cloud that after growing up your whole teenagehood with so much of everything, people are looking for something real.
There was a lot of, especially kids my age, there was a lot of
We don't know how old you are, Ben.
early 30s. Um, there was that whole generation before us which grew up with, let's just say, a lot of dinim, and they were trying to break out of that. And this whole new chinuch approach of this very like fluffy, lovey-dovey approach to chinuch, which we're not. That's not the discussion here. But do you think that it's not working for this generation, that they want more grounded halachic approach, like you were saying, that they're looking for this, that it's anchoring them? Do you think that that's what these Bachram are wanting? That's what these.
Well, I think that the fluffy lovey-dovey is enabling them to want that. If they were coming at them bidinim, like you said, then they would be running from that. I give a shir like we discussed in different locations, but one location I give a shir, and there are people that come and they just get anxiety. Like, I mean, they listen and then like, what's with the dinim? Literally, that's the word they would use. And like, what's with these dinim? Why gotta be machmir? Like, I'm not being machmir. I'm just telling them what it says in Shulchan Aruch. For some people, that's being machmir because it just triggers them. That's older generation. The generation that I'm giving that year to is definitely noticeably, 30s, 40s. And the younger generation is, teens through the 20s, and they're much more, accepting, I guess, much more open to it. Now, again, also depends on the crowd. You could have a 20-year-old that also grew up Bedinim. So it really depends where they're from, how they grew up, who raised them, how they were raised, etc.
And do you think that they're looking for that framework in their life, and halacha is what's giving it to them? That
Like I said, I don't know. I'm not like a navi. I don't know what they're looking for, but halacha is very grounding and it's enjoyable. Like we know the Torah says, the Chazal teach us, "In adam lamed alav shli b'chafetz," and people enjoy it. And especially, like for example, Dine Mamanis, when you start giving a shir in monetary matters, the place gets lit. I in the chat, but any shir that's Dine Mamanis, I will put money down that the crowd is a lot more lit. Then even if it's another topic that's very interesting, Chashabis, Basabacholov, Nido, whatever it might be, when it comes to monetary matters, people get lit. When it touches their pockets, they're in. They're all in. And it's day to day. And it's things that are happening all day to everyone in different shapes, different forms, different ways. And I think that just makes, obviously you can't just learn halacha, because just learning halacha, then you need to have the whole broad perspective. So that's already, you need to have the whole package. A shkafa, everybody has to know what works for them. It's not one shoe fits all. That's for sure.
that's for sure. And we know you give that. You give your shurim on parsha. You give your shurim on hashkafa matters, not hashkafa kshir, but you throw it in Maislach, Sipur Tzadikim. But one thing I want to get back to with the Bachram is, do you think them coming to Eretz Yisrael is giving them a a playing field where they're able to experience more Torah in their life than they would be in America?
That's a great question. So first of all, we have to always realize that there are dangers coming to Eretz Yisrael, because it could be a bacher or a girl for that matter that they were very sheltered. They grew up in America or anywhere in Chutz La'aretz, and then they come to Eretz Yisrael and it's a free for all, because there's no parents and there's no really anybody knowing what they do and what they don't do, and that's always a danger. On the flip side, everybody knows that Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael obviously is one of the greatest mitzvahs around, and Ein Torah Eretz Yisrael, that's Pashut, that's also a very known Yisod in Judaism. And if somebody's really looking to grow, then Eretz Yisrael is where it's at. There's no question that the years that he spent in Eretz Yisrael, if he's really setting his mind to it and looking to grow, like I said, doesn't matter where he's holding, even if he's not the most religious guy, but that's his trajectory. He's not coming here to party, and between you and me, there's probably better parties in Chutz La'aretz anyway. So I don't think most people are coming here to party. definitely what you can gain here is there's nothing that can match that in Chutz La'aretz just by being in Eretz Yisrael, being surrounded by Yidden that you don't have Tumas Amim in Chutz La'aretz. You have Goyim, you have Tumas Amim. Klesenberg Rebbe always used to say that Yidden in Chutz La'aretz are Avda Avodah Zarah B'Taira. Why? Because every Jew in Chutz La'aretz is celebrating Thanksgiving and Christmas and Halloween. By default, they have 3-day weekends, they have vacations. In Chutz La'aretz, you're inevitably you're chilling with the Goyim, so you're gonna have that in your reality. In Eretz Yisrael, it's mamish. There's nothing here. Go to anybody's sukkah in Eretz Yisrael, they have Christmas lights. They don't even know what you want from them. They're like, what? It's sukkah lights. Growing in I spoke to a guy from Chutz La'aretz. He told me how he loves hearing jingle bells, and it warms his heart. But that's what happens. You go up in Chutz La'aretz, you see kratzmach trees, you see snow, you see Santa Claus on the sleigh and whatever it's called, the sled. It's geschmack. He's smiling just thinking about it. That's too much samim. In Eretz Yisrael, we don't have that here, Baruch Hashem, and it no matter how you cut it, it definitely impacts it. Now, it's very important not to get caught up in the politica, like we say, because there is a lot of shtiyot in this country, and unfortunately, there is a vicious cycle of politica, and it's important to just stay out of it and just make sure you have good midas and you learn Torah and the and not to get caught up in the whole I don't know the whole, but the part of society that's not really that kav, I guess we'll call it.
Okay, well, that's very nice and all, but it is definitely a trend of just coming to Eretz Yisrael for yeshiva, or coming for sem, and not necessarily they're coming because they want to come. They're just coming because that's the trend. That's what everyone does.
I hear. So first of all, many of these people that are coming for the trend definitely have life-changing moments in this country in Eretz Yisrael. I even know people personally that came on birthright, completely irreligious. They weren't even planning on because they were planning on just partying on birthright, coming free trip to Israel, and going back to whatever they were doing in Chutz La'aretz. And they came here and they got inspired and they stayed on and they became religious. And Eretz Yisrael has that power. So if somebody's coming here just because that's what people do, but he's open-minded, that doesn't bother me so much. Like I said, the only thing that I would maybe hear the reason not to come is someone's coming here just strictly to party. Like we all know, Eretz Yisrael doesn't really like sinners. So it's definitely if a person is coming here in mind to sin, definitely would be better not to sin at all. But if he's going to sin, it should be in Chutz La'aretz. Nonetheless, like we said, many, 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 I would say the majority of people that come here definitely do have a life changing experience, and it affects them throughout their life, their marriage, their Yiddishkeit. And most people that I know personally, they don't live in Eretz Yisrael. I would say 99% of people who live here go, unfortunately, crawling back to get the boot. Kayadua in the chat. But they always talk about the good years in Eretz Yisrael. I don't know many people or any that say, "Oh, it was so hard. I hated it." They always look back and be like, "Those were the good years that we was able to learn to daven. It was just good years." When people get back into Chutz La'aretz, so many times it's the grind. Even if you're making money, it's the grind. Just grinding to make more money. In Eretz Yisrael, it's like that. Those were the spiritual years, and it gives somebody a base for their whole life. Therefore, I don't really hear any reason for a person not to come here besides for what we discussed. And I think it's be amazing. Like, of course, you have to come here with an open mind.
Nowadays, you hear there's a lot of you hear rabbanim, certain rabbanim saying, shidduch crisis with seminary girls, they shouldn't come to Eretz Yisrael anymore, or bachrim that they're saying, they're coming. You have good bachrim, they're coming to Eretz Yisrael, they get caught up in with bad brachim, and the mamish bad things are happening, and they're saying this new trend, not to come to Eretz Yisrael, to stay in yeshiva, keep learning, keep steiging, have a shidduch in America, stay in America. What would you respond to that, to these rabbanim?
I wouldn't be able to respond because I don't know the people they're referring to. If they know people that have come to Eretz Yisrael and it will be bad for them, then like we said, then I could hear that could be true. I don't know. I don't know. To say it as a blanket statement, I definitely don't agree with, because as a blanket statement, then you're basically generalizing and saying, don't go to Eretz Yisrael, which that sounds like the Miraglim. So I don't know, but
And you wouldn't say to generalize to come to Eretz Yisrael is not a general. It's why come to if
again, every yid should be fiending to come to Eretz Yisrael. That is part of being a yid. That's what all the Rishonim, all the Achronim, everyone in Klal Yisrael, basically throughout history, was their fantasy was to come to Eretz Yisrael. Some of them made it. Some of them died trying. Some of them never even could make it to try because they just couldn't get out. But look throughout history, from the Gra to the Chassam Sofer to Reb Nachman to the Baal Shem to everyone. That was everybody. The Ivets, you name it, they try to get here, or they wanted to come here. So it's very hard to understand how anybody could say otherwise. Maybe they just don't learn that part of Torah, or they just don't know that part of history. But of course, coming to Eretz Yisrael is a crucial part of Yiddishkeit. Um, Now, you won't hear most Haredi rabbis. I don't know if I'm Haredi, but I guess Haredi looking, besides for the fat suit. But you won't hear most Haredi rabbis talking like this because they don't want to get branded as Mizrachnik or Tziyani or some label. But that's the facts. The facts are that Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael is one of the greatest mitzvahs in the Torah. Like we discussed, all the Gedolim from all the stripes and all the colors throughout history, you name it, they try to get here. Could be they made it, could be they didn't. So I definitely think that as a starting point, coming to Eretz Yisrael is definitely highly recommended.
well, we see a lot of couples that they come to Eretz Yisrael and it's very hard for them, the Gashmius wise and Ruchnius wise, and maybe Taki, you should say no. You should stay in Chutz La'aretz. Be comfortable. Keep the Torah lifestyle that you have in Chutz La'aretz, and you don't need the stress of coming to Eretz Yisrael. And who says that stress outweighs the
Again, I'm not telling anybody to come to Eretz Yisrael to suffer. I don't subscribe to suffering. I'm not a fan. I don't think that that's what people need to be doing. Obviously, there are certain people that will say, "What do you mean? You got to suffer. You want to be close to Hashem. You got to suffer." I don't agree with that. Yeah, I don't think. I think that today, you didn't need to be comfortable in order to serve Hashem. And Baruch Hashem, we see in general that the shefa that we have today, this is pasha. No, in history, there's never been anywhere near such shefa. Sai Baruchnius, Sai Begashmius. Baruchnius, look around. I mean, don't look around here, but you can look around here. Baruch Hashem, thousands of svarim, hundreds, whatever it is. I think Rosen came here. He said, "What I'm not clean." He looks around. He's like, "Oh, what was it 5,000?" He's like, "That's not so much." I don't know, something like that. But either way,
there are shuls that wish they had a noitzer.
that's true. But I'm just saying. So the ruchnias today that in Slobodka, I think I mentioned this many times. You used to have to wait online, for a month. I don't know, a month for a week just to get the ritva. There was a waiting list to get the rashba. There was one rashba for the whole yeshiva, barely. Today, there's everybody. I'm not talking about the guys who have the computer programs. I'm talking about people who have real svarim. It's every base medrash, every shul has a beautiful eitzer. So Beruchnius, obviously, the siyata the Shema is incredible. The Shefa and Gashmius also. You see, Baruch Hashem, we don't really hear people dying of starvation today, at least not in the Western civilization, and definitely not by Klal Yisrael. Hashem gave Shefa. You didn't need Shefa. We're not even talking about the bowlers who are making weddings that are millions of dollars. We're talking about your average yid. People are struggling. There's no question, but the general lifestyle is much more shefadik v'ravchus than it's ever been, and I think it's pasha because that's what we need today. I look around. Unfortunately, I've been to Levias, I've been to Shloishims, whatever shivas. People are just they just can't handle any real emotional strain. That's the whole different topic, but like people mamish like I was at a yard site. Everybody's making jokes. Like that's for the world that we're in right now. Again, depends what age group we're talking about, but people they just need to chill. I guess maybe because like you said, they grew up with dinim, so now everything just needs to be the opposite extreme. But people need today the ravchus, you need the shefa. So back to your question, to come to Eretz Yisrael to suffer, quote unquote. If that's what you're going to be doing, then I'm not recommending that. I'm not suggesting that. But again, used to be, I've been here Baruch Hashem for I think 15 years now. It's not pasha. You can't take it for granted. That's obvious. It used to be in the beginning when I used to go back to visit in America. I'll walk around in the supermarket and I'll be like, wow, everything here is a quarter of the price of Eretz Yisrael. It's ridiculous. A shopping cart in Chutz La'aretz is $40, and in Eretz Yisrael it's like 500 check, for the same like three things. And the stuff you're buying in Israel that's made in Israel is still double the price in Israel. Today, when I go to America, it's probably more expensive. Like it's caught up very quickly. Living in Chutz La'aretz today, specifically America, Europe was always betzimtzum, but America used to be, it's not what it used to be. It's really not. Everything quadrupled 5 times, 6 times the price. People are really struggling in America. People are going off the derech in America. People used to be like, "What do you mean? If I'm after some, my kids will go off the derech." Maybe that used to be true. Now, unfortunately, kids go off the derech wherever they are. We have to daven to Hashem. That's all we. That's today. We have plenty of families in Eretz Yisrael that came from America that have beautiful children, mamash steigen away, top yeshivas, girls in the best schools. It's not what it used to be, that's for sure. But if somebody does know that if he comes here, he's going to suffer, then I would not tell him to come here. I'm not a shaheed. I don't know how to say that in English. I'm not a shaheed. Like I said, if you're not comfortable, then your Yiddishkeit's going to tank wherever you are. So the first step is you have to be comfortable. You have to know what you can handle. But if you can handle it and you're going to be comfortable, then definitely got to give Eretz Yisrael a try.
I want to just address a point that you brought up where you said the Sai, Ruchni Sai Gashmis, we're better off than ever, which is true. You see a lot, the amount of yeshivas, the amount of svarim that are printed, the amount of rabbanim, the amount of Gashmis, and yet you do see that there's this problem that's quite prevalent where a lot of people are just dead inside. They're thirsting for something and they don't know what. And yet at the same time, like you said, there's more yeshivas than there have ever been. There's more ruchnius wise that where's the answer to that?
So I don't have an answer to that, but first of all, because of the chef and ruchnius and gashmius, so unfortunately many things became commercialized. In Yiddishkeit, in general, just life became commercialized. Everything's commercialized, including Yiddishkeit, sometimes, some ways, in certain places, more or less. So commercialized Yiddishkeit definitely turns many people off because people are very sensitive, and when they see things that are just commercialized, just herd mentality, like they call it, they're like, well, this has nothing to do with reality, and this is not honest. This is just, am I on the Yankees or am I on the Mets? And that's a lot of times, unfortunately, what Yiddish guys become today. Yankees versus Mets. This newspaper versus that newspaper. This Hasidus versus that Hasidus. This Litvish versus that. Everything became teams. And many people are just like, what is this? Like, I don't care about my team. I want to just be an Eved Hashem. And an Eved Hashem, many times, what a real Eved Hashem means doesn't even, being part of the team, if anything, seems like the antithesis many times to being an Eved Hashem. It's just like, what does this have to do with Judaism? I just want to learn Torah. I want to daven. I want to be close to Hashem. And many times there seems to be things that are the opposite of that. So that definitely makes people just be like, I'm done. Like, this is not for me. This is all a scam. That's this all a scam. It's a her, obviously, because not all a scam. I'm sure even being on the Yankees versus the Mets in the Judaism aspect, there's also realism. I don't know if that's the word, realism in that. But the nature is like, listen, it's all a scam. Just check out, and that's what many people do. And then Baruch Hashem, we see many come back, and then they find their own path, and that's why we have all these neighborhoods that just look like a circus because everybody's on their own path, But Thailand's trying to get close to Hashem, which is amazing. That's the truth. And also, there are many Jews that aren't dead inside. That's the truth.
Oh, for sure.
There are definitely many of them that are steiging and they're rocking it, and it's really beautiful to see. So, yesh v'yesh.
Well, what you said, this circus, you're the Rav in a neighborhood that's quite. There's a plethora, a spectrum of Yidden in this neighborhood, Givat HaMivtar. How do you, as a Rav, how are you able to not only gauge the what's around you, the people around you, but also address the shilas that each different person is coming to you with. From 18-year-olds to 80-year-olds, from people who are grew up yeshivish to people who are mamash balei tshuva. They're all in this neighborhood. You name it, it's here, and you're getting their shilas. You're getting these people. These people view you as their rav. How do you, as a rav, how are you able to weave through that maze?
Siyata Deshmaya. That means there's no real answer to that question. I will say an amazing. I think I mentioned this a different time. I don't remember where. Probably a few times. But I love saying this over that they were thinking about making an app. By now they made it, but when they made the app, before they made the app, they asked the whole lineup of Gdoile of Paiskim that were around then. They were already, I think most of them were Nifter, Alem Shalom. But they asked these Gdoilim, what do you think about making an app to check Bedika cloths, to check Maris? And regardless of the different reason, some obviously the more ultra orthodox ones said no, Chadash Asr Min HaTorah, which everybody with their mahalich. But one said the most amazing you said, which I love, and I don't remember who it was. I don't want to make up a name, but maybe if I remember, we'll try to get it in there. But he said very simple: when somebody asks a Rav a question, the special siyata d'shmaya. An app is not going to have that siyata d'shmaya. So maybe you can make an app with AI and algorithms, and it'll know exactly what the lighting could be. But siyata d'shmaya will never have. It's like chachma, zero siyata d'shmaya. So you got to delete that, by the way. Anyway, Akitsu Bemet. Lamaisa, that's already too political. But Akitsu, so what I'm saying is that that therefore a Rav is the same thing. A Rav, it's straight Siyata Deshmaya, but I will put it out there, is that unfortunately I do a lot of damage control. That is definitely something that I would say. I don't know what percentage of the shalas are damage control, but a nice amount. And it's very crucial for a Rav, but really for anyone who has any, interpersonal, social, anything, just these part of the planet, to be in touch with reality. And unfortunately, today, many, people are not in touch with reality, and also certain rabbanim sometimes are not in touch with reality, and that creates a lot of issues. Because yes, there is halacha, and there's a shulchan aruch, and there's poskim, and everything is 100% true, and that's how we have to live our life. But you have to know the situation. You have to know who's calling, who's asking, who's coming, what's their marriage like, what's their kids, what's their parents, what's their upbringing, where they're heading, where they're coming from. And this is all a crucial part. I personally try very hard, unless it's like a basic mamish, like a classic shaila. I really try not to answer people that I don't know, on some level, because many times the shaila is you need to know the situation, you need to know the background, you need to know what's going on in the person's life on a personal level. And if you don't know that, you could mamish kill the guy, kill his wife, kill his kids, destroy the family, and etc. So therefore, it's very crucial to just know what's going on, side with the person. Like I always tell people, when you pick a Rav, the Rav has to know two things. He has to know what's up, and he has to know you. And he has to know Torah, but that's obvious, or else he's not a Rav. But he has to know what's up, means he has to know what's going on in the world. Where's the world holding today? If you want to know, just open an Ami and flip through the pages. You'll get a good picture where the Klal Yisrael's holding. I do that sometimes just to get a finger of what's going on. How many Pesach programs are going on. Where are they? And who's going to be there? And how much is the double occupants? 15K. Like you start getting your finger on the pulse, or you say that's only 5% of class. Okay, good child, but that's where class is consuming. They're consuming. I'm sorry, mishpach, if you're a little bit more yeshivish, but that's what they're consuming. Whether you're part of it, you could afford it. You gotta know where class is holding. That's where they're holding. So somebody actually reached out to me from a certain place in America, Mamash Ben Tyra, and he complained to me that on the Alon that we have, Baruch Hashem, it's, the Elam knows about this Alon, that the Alon has a, what's it called, the barcode? No.
QR code.
QR code, has a QR code. And he said to me, listen, how could you put this on your Alon? It's really bad. You're saying that smartphones are okay. You got to delete, you got to erase it, you got to get it off the Alon. off the back of the Alon. So I said, yeah, you're right. You're right 100%. What are you going to argue? You can't argue with people like this. But I will say he's right. Smartphones are really horrible and they destroy humanity. But on the other hand, we got to live with the facts. And the facts is that many didn't have smartphones. So let's give them an opportunity to learn more Torah. You scan it and bam, you get hundreds, maybe thousands of Sherman Hashem. Are there? How many are there already by now, Baruch Hashem? So yeah, you can't. You got to know the facts on the ground. So yeah, he's fighting an amazing battle, and we need people like that because people like that they balance things out. It's amazing. But to say to the erase it when probably 90% of the population that's reading this alone, if not more, has a smartphone, is counterproductive. So definitely back to the Shiloh of answering, different age levels. And this it's siyata d'shmaya, period. Also, you need to be in touch with reality, and you need to know the facts on the ground, and you need to know halacha. Because if you don't know halacha, then like we said, then you're not a rav.
We all know, I'm sure we know people, we experience stories of going to Rav, we're mamash out of touch, but there's a certain aspect where, especially in this day and age, a lot of people, they really, it took a lot of koyach for them to actually go to a Rav and ask the Shaila. And a lot of times they'll come to a Rav and they just want that answer. But like you said, if the Rav doesn't know them, they're not going to give them the full time of day that they need. And that can really have a damaging effect on the person. They brought all this willpower in order to finally ask a Rav something. You don't know the trauma that they have from past things. How do you, as a Rav, have that interpersonal connection with them where you can actually not create that situation, like not create the damage control before, like you said?
Again, first of all, no one's perfect. I can't say I've never damaged anyone. I hope not. But no one's perfect. So there might be one or two damaged goods walking around, and we hope that we'll do tshuva for that.
Where are they going to go to?
That's a good shaila. But again, it's really just being a people's person, I guess. You have to laredet la'am. I don't know how to say that in English, but tzrichim laredet la'am. You have to be. What's the words? I don't know. How do you say laredet la'am? You have to be part of the am. You got to know what's up. That's it. Then you feel people out, and you gotta care about people. That's it. You got to care about people, and if you care about people, then people feel that, and then they open up, and you know.
You deal a lot with Israelis also in the neighborhood and in the Kollel and Yeshiva. How do you, as an American, um, as their Rav, relate to is that difficult for you to is it difficult for them to gauge you as a Rav, and for you as an American to be the Rav to them?
Difficult for them. I don't know. You have to ask them. I don't really know what's going through their head. It's not difficult for me. That's the truth. The Israelis that I've dealt with, I guess, they're I don't know. They're just I understand them. I understand where they're coming from. And in general, most of the times it's halachic questions. Again, so you have to know the situation. You have to know the matzah, like we said, but they're not really asking me, Israeli questions. I don't know what that would be, but so and I don't have to now. They ask me like, should we go to this Afghana? Like they're not asking me that question usually. If they ask me that question, then I'll probably shut down. But
Do you see a difference in the shilas that are asked from Americans and from Israelis to you?
definitely, the Americans that are asking shilas are much more open. They have much more um, uncensored shilas. Definitely, much more open, much more uncensored, and you know, very much more betmimus. I guess that's the I guess the var. They're just like, yeah, I want to ask the rabbi, can I do X, Y, whatever it is, which might be like off the charts, shilas that Israelis wouldn't even think to ask if they had such a shaila, and most of them don't even have these shilas. But I'm Maven Yovin.
Do you see that as a, I wouldn't use the word mila in Israelis, but there's a certain almost there's self reliance that Israelis have that
Israelis in general are self-reliant because they grew up and they were born into a war zone, and their entire life is just in their brain. They're at war. even if it's not with Iran or Hamas, it's with the bus driver and their neighbor, and there's a constant fight going on in their head. Again, that's my take. But that so that it's a whole different life. Like Americans grew up a fanan, so like I always like this. I love saying this, but one parking spot in Costco is the entire parking lot on Paran. Like you pull in your SUV in Costco and you're chilling. You open your door, you're not banging anybody's car, and you're like still like 20 feet. Here you squeeze into a Yesh parking and you're I-20, into the spot.